Hello, my name is Thad Butler, this is Spencer Hoover, and this is Alan Farley. Today we will be doing a Tide Talk on the idea that what if the United States had never joined World War I? Throughout our research on websites like Digital History and National Interest, we determined that there are many positive and negative outcomes of the U.S. joining the Great War. We will be covering topics like why the U.S. joined the war, the effects of joining, and what would have happened if we hadn't joined. I will first start off by saying that one of the reasons we joined World War I is because Germany resumed unrestricted submarine warfare. This basically means that any ship spotted by German U-boats in the Atlantic Ocean would be destroyed on spot. This was a red flag for many countries, including the United States. This was one of the main factors that pushed the U.S. to join.
And once the U.S. was in, it basically forced Germany to surrender on November 11th, 1918. And all the nations also agreed to stop fighting while the terms of peace were negotiated. It didn't really matter if people liked or hated this armistice. It was actually the first step to ending World War I.
If the U.S. would have ignored the unrestricted submarine warfare, then it is very likely that the U.S. would have maybe entered World War I a little bit later on in the war, or maybe not at all. I mean, that's a big factor.
Yeah, and I feel like Germany knew that by resuming unrestricted submarine warfare that something bad was going to come out of it, that could have caused a war, or could have caused trouble for them, just in general. But another event that pushed the United States to join the Great War was the intercepting of the Zimmermann telegram. The Zimmermann telegram was a message that was sent by the German Foreign Secretary, Arthur Zimmermann, to Mexico that requested a secret alliance. The alliance would have helped Mexico take back a large portion of the United States, including Texas, Arizona, and New Mexico. The code was intercepted and decoded by British intelligence and was released to the Americans. The telegram enraged citizens and helped support the idea of the United States joining the war. This was another one of the leading events that caused the U.S. to join into World War I.
Once again, the United States entering World War I had a big impact on the war. It helped bring war on the Western Front in Europe to an end. If the U.S. didn't interfere with the war, then it may have carried on a lot longer and had a lot more casualties.
If the U.S. Maybe would have not, like relating onto your idea, if they wouldn't have intercepted the telegram, Mexico could have a lot of U.S. territory right now. They could have, Texas. They could have just our world in general, like, immigrants. Everything would be different. Our culture, a lot of things would be different.
Yeah, really, like our history books and like the events that we read about and learn about would be completely different. We wouldn't have we might not even have half our country because, if they would have successfully taken back that large portion of our South, we would have lost Texas, which is one of the biggest states in our country. Yeah, and also German U-boats destroyed the Lusitania, a British ocean liner. This event enraged other countries, especially the United States. The event caused more U.S. citizens to change their opinions about entering the war. It fired up many young American men and encouraged them to enlist into the military. Throughout the mid-1910s, German U-boats destroyed many ships that didn't even pose a threat to their country. These events were contributing factors to the creation of the Allied forces.
And even though the United States was pretty angry with Germany, they accidentally ended up crucially reinforcing the strength of the naval blockade of Germany. But they also aimed at crushing Germany economically. This means that if the U.S. Army did not intervene, the German army might have actually won and destroyed the British.
Without the assistance of the United States military, the war would have carried on and Germany may have won the war, causing a very devastating ending. The U.S. alliance with the British. Without the assistance of the United States military, the war would have carried on and Germany may have won the war, causing a very devastating ending. The U.S. had a very strong alliance with the British, and they could have lost a lot of their navy and had a lot more casualties if the U.S. wouldn't have intervened.
Yeah, and I know this is a stretch, but I read somewhere online that World War II may not even have happened if Germany won World War I, and that would have been a direct effect if the United States hadn't joined, because we supplied the Allied forces with so much munitions and so many troops and stuff like that. But like Germany would have won, and that would have led to like the fighting leading a lot longer, and their army would have been so weak from winning World War I that a lot of rebellions would have formed, and their army could have been just completely destroyed. So they wouldn't have had anything to fight with in World War II. So. And there were many small events that were factors to the United States joining World War I. However, an event that sticks out to me is the Black Tom explosion. The Black Tom explosion took place in New York Harbor and was carried out by German saboteurs. The attack destroyed a munitions factory that supplied Allied countries for war and caused damage to the Statue of Liberty. This, of course, deeply angered American citizens and increased the amount of pro-war Semitists. The overwhelming pressure from the public eventually caused the U.S. entry into World War I. The event was considered a terrorist attack and wasn't taken lightly by the government.
And speaking of the government, the American involvement in the war had a huge effect on the diplomatic process that essentially ended the war. Also, when Woodrow Wilson was in office, he had his 14 points, and they were very important to help encourage a large fraction of Germany that wanted to end the war.
Relating to what Thad said about the Black Tom explosion, I found out the Red Cross was actually created from this explosion. And today the Red Cross still stands as a human organization that helps cure a lot of diseases. If this did not happen from the U.S. joining the war, the Red Cross probably wouldn't be a thing today. This explosion happened prior to the U.S. entering the war. This means that it could have brought the decision of the U.S. entering the war more clear. We will be right back from a message from our sponsors.
Are you kidding me? There's a hole in my bucket. Hi, Phil Swift here with Flex Tape, the super strong rubberized waterproof tapes and seals and long repairs. To show you the power of Flex Tape, I will fix this hole with one swing of my hand. Wow, thank you, Phil Swift.
All right, and back to what we were talking to. In the beginning of 1917, Germany, yet again, attacked and sank 4 American merchant ships in the North Atlantic, causing more outrage in the U.S. and leading to the United States finally entering the war on April 6, 1917.
This is what really drove the United States more into the war. I mean, everyone just, coming together, want more people, outweighing, they want to join the war than the people that didn't. The treasurer, created all these Liberty loan bonds to get the funds to, have the U.S. enter the war. But, yeah, there's many different things on why the U.S. joined the war, and it could have, affected us if we didn't. It could have changed a lot of things.
Right. And so, in conclusion, the public's pressure and the German U-boat attacks on American ships were the 2 leading factors that caused the U.S. to join the war. Many of these events that we read and learn about in our history books would be different if we hadn't entered into World War I. There could have been many positive and negative outcomes if the U.S. had stayed out of the war. However, nobody knows for sure what would have or could have happened if America didn't sign to join the Allies to fight in the Great War. That was really shocking.